United States federal government now owns Ethereum, like they're going to be like, dang, I wish it was actually decentralized in a meaningful way. Understanding that Bitcoin just isn't about, number go up and getting rich, but it's also about the responsibility of kind of cleansing yourself of fiat. Bitcoin's something we've always been searching for and seeking on some level, even long before it existed.
So I'm no longer counting episodes when I count these things in. So welcome to the latest episode of the Wake Up Podcast. I have one of my favorite Bitcoiners on again. I think the last time we spoke, I believe I had just arrived in Brazil, and now I'm in another fucking retarded third world country searching for freedom. So Erik, thank you for coming on again, man.
It's great to see you again. Great to talk. I can hear the beeping of indicating that you truly are in the third world.
Yep. Just as we started this shit, the fucking power went out. So I'm on backup power. Surprisingly enough, the backup power is like connected to the internet. So the internet's still working. I guess that's good. But yeah, we sounds like there's a dying person in the background at a fucking hospital. So I promise it's not where I am. I haven't killed anyone. Nice. So how you been, man?
I'm good. When all the COVID stuff went down, we got out of Dodge, and then we were living near my parents for about a year while I got my stuff together to find a new place. And now I'm like living out in the forest, like next to the coast, going fishing a lot. And it's nice I didn't realize how pressured I felt living in the cities. So I feel a lot more comfortable, and like I can start building kind of the I kind of have a 5-year plan for like how I'm establishing kind of self-sovereignty in my area, because I got the I have the knowledge for growing food and planting stuff. I have the space and the water, and so like now I'm just kind of I've been doing forestry work for like the last couple months, which has been awesome, just like chainsawing huge trees down and stuff, which I've really enjoyed.
You the knowledge for doing this stuff, so is this something sort of like recently learned, or is this something you've kind of done in a past life?
No, like in a past life, I lived on a flower farm we had like a fun little commune, and I grew all kinds of stuff. And that was kind of part of when I kind of had my whole like manic episode that like launched me into Bitcoin. At the same time, like I was told very specifically to get my hands in the soil. So like I've over the past, I guess it's been like a decade now, I've always been kind of growing stuff, and I grow marijuana too. So like I've always tried to grow the weed that I smoke and share it with friends and stuff. So yeah, I've got a green thumb, and now I have it's great. Like I really miss it. I used to grow it with my father-in-law. Actually, we would grow, he'd have anywhere from like 60 to 200 plants, and then after we'd like hire a bunch of people, do the trims, we'd always have a bunch of pounds that we could sell and kind of pass around. But that was long ago, and I haven't done that in quite a while. But yeah, now I'm getting back into it because where I live accommodates to it, and it's totally legal here. And yeah, I have an orchard, and I've been just like picking shitloads of apples and pears. It's been a pretty great life, actually. It's been it's interesting, like the call of Bitcoin, and how like I have this like beautiful life in Eden where like I could, not deal with any of this shit, but I'm still called back to this because of the
I was about to say this. I literally was going to say in my mind, this sounds like Erik's Eden or something, and you just like said the word. It's wow, okay, interesting. Well, I guess now that makes sense about some of your stories around how you fly in airplanes, and when we caught up in Miami. Why it was, dude, that one puff that I had of your thing, it fucking wiped me out that night. Holy shit, I'm such a lightweight.
That's great. Me and Francis were just passing that back and forth all night.
Yeah, man, you guys are fucking, God knows how much tolerance you guys have. Like, I'm such a pussy. Like, a couple milligrams, fucking, I'm high for 2 days.
Oh yeah, it's in our veins. When I visit like one of my closest friends who I talk pretty deeply about this Bitcoin stuff with, because he's worked on Bitcoin Core, and he's a very experienced developer. But we'll smoke like 10 joints back to back, just like pass them back and forth, talking about philosophy and stuff. It's fantastic. you know.
It's incredible.
Like,
Have you not found, like, it seems like everyone that I've met, or at least the majority of people that I've met over the years, like, because you are honestly, like, I consider one of the sharpest people that I know. You fucking, like, I consider you one of the, I don't know, I have in my mind kind of like what I view as the strongest Bitcoiners, you know, and sort of in there is like, you know, you and Gigi and Valis and Francis and like, you know, Safe and things like that. So I kind of like have this group in my mind, like, you know, Parker Lewis and Brandon Quittem and all this sort of shit. And I mean, it's interesting, like probably every one of them is a fucking pothead in some way, but like, it's kind of the only group of people that I've come across that has, because I'm new to weed, for example. The first time I literally ever had it was when I turned 30 and my sister spiked my fucking birthday cookies. That was the first time I was ever exposed to any cannabis whatsoever.
That's a bummer that that's how that happened, but
well, yeah. I mean, you know, it has its pros because, you know, I mean, I still don't do it much, but for me, only like my tolerance is so low that it doesn't require much. Like one puff and I'm fucking on another galaxy.
I mean, that's great, and I wish I was there. I wish I didn't smoke weed every day, but like I do, and it's a habit. I'm actually thinking about making October called Offtober, where like I don't smoke weed, I turn off all the computers and shit, and just like I sincerely just try to turn everything off and just like focus on reading and stuff. We'll see if I have the wherewithal to do it, but you know, I think part of it is that you know, like marijuana does have a psychedelic affect that allows, you know, like, you know, you just get lost in those thoughts and stuff, and I think that those hold these really transformational moments because like you can see things in a fundamentally different way, and your mind sort of gets past you and beyond you. And so I think that it has kind of a property that can do rewiring, you know, and I like riding that wave, and I think psychedelics are that, like on a much grander level, you know, and it can so much so that like it can provide a transcendental experience. And I think a lot of people, you know, Bitcoin's something we've always been searching for and seeking on some level, even long before it existed. You know, it's much more about Bitcoin becomes the weapon that like is our shilling point to fight all of this. And like it's really interesting because like I think what's happening is we're actually remembering a very, very deep and powerful aspect of you know, fundamentally what has advanced humanity, and it's this solidarity that's created when a true commonwealth that's about like the bond of individual men with each other and the protocols that they use, which essentially like is Bitcoin, you know, played out on the grandest scale with the greatest game theory applied to it.
Fundamentally agree with that. So here's a question, just want to tie off this this weed and psychedelic piece is when you, because you're one of the most prolific writers, and actually you came up in a conversation with so Gigi was down here in Costa Rica with me and Francis and the gang, and we had the fucking most awesome time, and you came up in one of the conversations where, you know, Gigi was saying like, you know, a lot of the work that's written these days like is kind of like a rehash of shit that you wrote back in 2013, for fuck's sake. And you know, and kind of like how your thinking has gone from like being really philosophical and explaining things in, you know, these complex terms back in 2013, 2014, 2015. It's like these days, you know, Erik's explanation for Bitcoin is like, yeah, you're gonna fucking do it, otherwise you're gonna stop. Like it's kind of, you know, you come full circle out of just like having to be really eloquent about, you know, being the think boy that explains it. That journey is really unique. But before we dig into that, I just wanted to ask, like, do you write while you're tripping, or do you use the ideas that kind of form when you've been high to then write sober? Curious about this one.
Oh, thanks for asking this, because this is actually part of my creative process. I've found that if I'm going to smoke weed and I want to write, I can smoke a joint, and then like that's my first, because that's the first time I'm really going to get high for the day. And then if I can sit down, it usually flows out of me. But it's also very problematic because like I've found, and this is one of the reasons I haven't published anything recently, is like I keep going off into left field on topics, and it's hard for me to pull them back in, particularly because I've been dealing with very esoteric stuff recently. Like from reading Heidegger, I'm dealing a lot with this idea like language as its like full ontological structure, and like how it feeds back into its own dynamics that actually like gives its own essentialness to like man and what he's trying to communicate. But so like this has caused for me to you know, branch off in all these different directions. And getting high doesn't help it. So I've actually found more recently, if I'm just trying to be inspired to like get something new and fleshed out, getting high is great for it. If I'm trying to complete something, getting high is not the way to go.
Yeah, okay, I can relate to that, because I actually tried, and like that article that I just published, you know, the Bitcoiners of the remnant. So I attempted. So the other night, me and my girlfriend. It wasn't the other night. It was about a week and a half ago. So we actually, I don't do mushrooms often. Like I maybe do it once a quarter or something like that, maybe even less frequently. And you know, we had a beautiful experience, and then we kind of did an echo with some weed in the evening after it, to kind of like, you know, bring the experience back. Yeah. And it was an incredible experience. And I was like, man, my mind is going on multiple tangents and multiple parallels. I was like, I'm gonna sit down and write. And I honestly thought that night what I wrote was fucking brilliant. And I read it the next morning. I was like, Jesus Christ, like I just kind of, I fleshed out like the essence of some ideas, but I kind of went around in like some weird ass fucking circles and nothing really made sense. And I was like, yeah, okay. This is like, it's not garbage. It's like, I'm onto something, but it was just like a 4-year-old wrote it. So it was like a profound realization, but a fucking pathetic execution.
Particularly on psychedelics, writing can be very difficult, particularly if you haven't trained yourself, and if it's a larger dose. So perhaps there are some gems in there, but I do believe that like the thoughts you were having and the sincerity that you believe them to have were there. Language just like totally failed you.
That's exactly sort of, right. Yeah, I was like,
and unfortunately, like that's kind of the grand experience of being man, right? Like, and I think that's one of the reasons why I encourage psychedelic use so much, is because like there's only so much I can say towards the experiences, and once people can have them, they can understand this entire linguistic experience that you know, we can't describe in any meaningful way. You just kind of have to have it.
Yeah, interesting. So,
which I think is relational to the idea of finally getting Bitcoin and why it's so important and what makes it unique and different in the world, you know, versus, you know, just number go up.
Yeah, well, so on that point, so, you know, I think one thing I've found when I first started writing and thinking deeply about Bitcoin, because the thing I love about writing is just the process of really, you know, getting your ideas and everything that's up here into a format that forces you to structure it and actually, you know, bring out an argument and make it consistent and give it a point. Basically, that's I think, and Jordan Peterson talks a little bit about this, is like writing and speaking is the process of structuring your thoughts and directing them in a particular direction. And I'm butchering, you know, and I'm butchering what he said and, you know, trying to paraphrase it here, but it's effectively in that space. Now, what's interesting is that when I look back at my writing, there's been periods, especially in the earlier days, where I, you know, used 10 words to say one thing. And, you know, I really was kind of, I would place myself in the think boy space. Like I really, it was extra philosophical. It was, you know, it was all of this, you know, stuff to try and say something. And the more I'm around, I don't know, the less of a desire I feel on a couple fronts. On one, to try and be excessively eloquent for no reason. And B, also my desire to try and like convince somebody about Bitcoin has minimized. Now I'm like, fuck you. I'm a Bitcoin elitist. If you don't want it, I'm not going to convince you. Please. Like I actually beg people now to continue to buy dollars and continue to buy Ethereum. And, you know, whenever I see a tweet about someone saying I'm exploring NFTs, I'm like, yeah, please buy them all. Like, go ahead. Like I no longer have a desire to try and fucking convince and coerce people. So I wonder what your experience has been like, having been in Bitcoin, longer than most people.
Well, to the point about writing, like Nick Carter actually has a great piece that he has on writing, and I really appreciate it because like I'm probably the most guilty of excessive eloquent phrases just because I like language, and I found myself when I read that piece of Nick Carter's, he's pretty much saying, like we have an obligation to the reader about what we're writing to like try to convince them and have it be thoughtful and smooth. And I almost felt offended by it because like I'm writing for my own process to actually truly try to communicate what I believe. And also like being more on the excessive think boy philosophical side, I think there's very explicit language and words that we need to try to understand on a much deeper level. In the school of Heidegger, and his students, Ambegin, Levinas, and several others that I'm a big fan of. That these are big linguistic things that are occurring on a metaphysical level that's very important. So I want to explore those more deeply. In terms of the Bitcoin trying to convince people, yeah, I don't care anymore. Like stay away. Like you're not interested, you're not ready, you're not prepared for what Bitcoin actually is if you're coming to me asking is it a good time to buy. I don't know, probably not, but like that's not what I'm here for. And like that's why like more and more of what this whole idea of the remnant is like I'm not interested in speaking to the masses. Like they're the same retards that are like, well, but if we don't pay taxes, who's gonna build the roads? It's like, you fucking idiot. Like that, like I'm over these conversations. I'm not interested in them at all. I'm interested in people that are like, yeah, fuck the state. Like, what can we actually do to try to make a real change? And I'm like, we got this Bitcoin thing. And they're like, yes, but but what else can we do? And it's like, great, we're all on the Bitcoin train. Like, and I think part of that is there's like this whole system of counter economics that's going to come up where like by virtue of whatever you do, like being the person that's in Bitcoin doing that, it's going to make your business more profitable because your treasury is ran in Bitcoin. There's excessive opportunity to be able to take advantage of this bubble cycle and to be able to, assist your business in a thoughtful way. And I think like that's what the next decade's about. And I'm really excited to see it. And furthermore, that this whole idea of remnant helps me on my own journey of realizing like I have no interest in having a business that like caters to like normal people who like come in and we have to like talk about the weather. No, like I'm interested in being with these people that understand Bitcoin and what we're doing and the lifestyles that we want to have and the aesthetics that we desire and how that plays out in all of the different amenities that it'll offer. And it's very exciting because there was a long period before this that I wasn't sure how any of that would work out, or like it wasn't clear to me that there was going to be the production of this remnant, and it's very exciting because for a long time I was alone and didn't realize that there would be other people that felt the same way as I did.
Had you read Albert Nock's piece beforehand, or is this sort of the first exposure for you?
No, first exposure. And when I was reading your article, I clicked through because I was like, yes, that needs to be purchased now.
Yes. It's a brilliant piece. It's like it's short, it's sharp, and it's like, I mean, I remember for a long time because see, I think Ayn Rand's books, helped me a lot with this, but it's also because I've always been, since a young age, an overachiever, right? Like at school, I was always trying to be the best, like be number one in whatever vertical, like whether it was at mathematics, whether it was at science, whether it was on the soccer field, whether it was at the gym, whatever the case is. Like I always strove for excellence or to be, outstanding. So I always like, it was funny, like for many years I was confused because like I had a problem with what many people would call, the elites, like your Klaus fucking Schwab, is the poster child for that fucking moron kind of, which I'm trying to like really actively change the vernacular around. Like they're not elites, they're parasites, they're scum, they're moochers, they're looters. Like, please, let's not designate them with the title of elite, because in my mind, I have always strived to be elite, because elite means to be in the small percentage of the best, like the small percentage of those who either produce the most, give the most, or, you know, can exceed what is considered, you know, average. And when I think about elite, I naturally think about Bruce Lee or fucking Steve Jobs or Alexander the Great or Usain Bolt, or, you know, people who are the best at what they fucking do. And it's funny because over the decades, like I said, I've had this kind of anti-authoritarian, like this, like you can almost smell the fakeness of the fake elites, you know, the parasites, because they become like that because I would say that they were originally part of the masses, and they were a jealous version of the masses that attempted to compete with natural elites, and they couldn't, they failed. So they tried to then weaponize the masses against the natural elite so that they could steal their shit. And when I look at history, like it's sort of, you know, a story of that. And yeah, coming across this piece by Albert Nock, like for me, was just such a, I don't know, it just put it into words that I just felt was so eloquent, which is, you know, the masses just, they don't really matter. And there is a good subset of the masses that are so fucking jealous of the natural elite that they'll create institutions and find ways to basically rob them, under the guise of the good of all, and we're all in this together, and whatever other fucking platitude that they want to spew out of their mouths. And you know, they've created such a, you know, such a disdain for basically the prime movers of the world. And I feel like this is why I've had this inside me. And when I read Ayn Rand's novels, like they're so, like, you know, that they define the elite and the parasite and so beautiful a terms. And kind of she creates this view of the masses where they don't even matter in the book. They're just there, like they're the background. And I don't know if you've got any comments on that.
That's how the masses really are, right? Like they're truly NPCs. Like they're not going to like join our party and like participate in a meaningful way on our quest. They're like, I approach them and they're like, stay a while and listen. And like, I'm like, no, like we gotta get out of here. Like fiat's gonna kill us all. He's like, well, stay a while and listen. I'm like, fuck, he's an NPC. Let's go. You know, like it's just what it is. You know, and like we're witnessing that in the breakdown right now, and how many people are doubling down on their loyalties to this antiquated system that like isn't going to help or save them. And to me, like that's always it's kind of fucked up, but I really enjoy watching like the last bit of hope people have about the political system being crushed, and then having them like turn towards anarchism and like non-state solutions. And to me, like that's part of the exciting new world that we're creating, because this parasitism has gotten so deep and powerful. And to me, like the way that I would actually divide it would be like the difference between entrepreneurs and like state capitalists. Like state capitalists want a guaranteed return. They're like old money. They have to like have everything totally safe. They don't want to risk anything. They're part of the old industry and the old elite, and they want regulatory structures that calcify everything. Versus like the entrepreneur who like heroically wants to actually, like, he's not even interested in trying to change the difference of how, say, you know, the autumn, you know, how transportation happens. Like they want to create the automobile that fundamentally creates a new industry. You know, and that's part of what we're doing with Bitcoin, and that's part of the parasitism that I see is happening. Like I think you're a bit more firebrandy towards crypto, and that like I do think there's some real innovation that's going on in the space. I don't like the idea that people position themselves as like having any sort of monetary meaning, or being anything outside of a security, frankly. And that's where I get pissed off, is that like, look, you're not money. Like stop trying to pretend that you're money. Stop trying to pretend that you have some political conquest in front of you. And more I'm becoming worried that they could integrate with the old structures to create some fucked up, you know, panoptic system.
That's something I want to dig
like,
into for sure.
You know, like I really hope and like I won't be surprised, but like if anybody out there is like going to work on a cool project, like creating a like stable coin for the US government, like fucking stop, like reflect on what you're doing for a minute. Like this is evil and wrong, you know? And like, I hope it doesn't fall on deaf ears, but like, you know, and to any of your listeners for that matter, like we have a real responsibility if we know people that are engaged in the structure to at least confront them about that. You know, like it's, because right now what's going on is fucking insane and bullshit and crazy and wrong. And I'm really happy that we have the remnant and the tools to fight back, because we're going to become the forefront of this battle for the simple reason that they can't crush us into economic slavery because we disagree with them. And like, it's super clear that shit's going down. You know, like it just sucks to like be a student of history and like seeing all of this shit repeat itself and being like, you guys look at history, and people are like, no, like
it's not the same.
Never wanted to have anything to do with the national public health, and it's like
yeah. It's like it's not the same, you know. It's like I've got a friend who used to be friend, I shouldn't even call him that anymore, the retard, but he used to be a police officer in Australia. And you know, he's like, I should join the police force again so that I could beat some people up in the protests. I'm like, bro, that's not fucking like, you know, he was always kind of trying to be like the cool kid at school, you know what I mean, like be different. And you know, when we were younger, we kind of got along because he was the kind of kid like who wouldn't get pushed around and everything. And in some ways, like, you know, he was kind of, you know, conservative, but he's one of those like moron, dumb conservatives, like back the fucking blue. And I just sent him a message. I'm like, man, you know, it doesn't make you fucking cool to take orders from a bunch of fucking bureaucrats who never hit puberty and are still virgins at 40 years old. So they want to impose their rule on a bunch of people. I go, just because, you know, you think you can beat up on people, you're actually the fucking muppet that is taking orders from a fucking loser in the first place. That doesn't make you fucking cool, you know, doesn't make you conservative, doesn't make you right, you know, the whole boys in blue fucking thing. I go, you're a fucking loser. You're actually dumber than the leftists that you fucking hate. So and it's just like, yeah, I don't know why I'm going off on that tangent, but it's like, yeah, these people are fucking lemmings and retards. But I want to circle into
and we have a system that says like you're afforded the like your vote matters as much as their retarded vote. And then, you know, if 51% votes us to jump off a bridge, well, I guess that's it, right? You know, I'm like and I don't want to discount like true democratic systems that are like bottom up and localized and shit, but like this whole political system like is not fucking working across the board. Like not how elections work, not how the money works, not how it's allocated, like fucking none of it. You know, and also like not only is it not working, but like it's pushing us to places of very dangerous crises. And so like I really hope people, you know, like this is again with the remnant thing, we're sounding the alarm bells, and like meanwhile, like Johnny Retard, after reading his daily dose of propaganda, is like, oh, like inflation, it's just transitory. Like it can't, like that's all it is. It's just transitory. It's like, okay, Grandpa, like go buy your bonds. Go buy your bonds, and like when you have nothing to leave us, we understand. That's why we bought Bitcoin. So
yeah. So okay, couple things then. As you mentioned, I am quite anti-crypto. I mean, I did a pod with Pomp a couple months back, and it was actually while I was in Miami. And I laid the foundation. I said, look, mark my fucking words, Ethereum is going to be the network upon which the World Economic Forum central bank digital currency is going to be launched on. Like that was my thesis. You know, the idea that under the guise of decentralization and under the guise of innovation and the same platitudes and fucking horseshit that they spew out in fintech and crypto circles, they are going to, as the state, through their incompetence and realizing that they can't roll out any project successfully for that matter, will partner with people like, I think the perfect archetypes for them to partner with are like Vitalik, or probably more likely like someone like Charles Hoskinson. Like that guy is like the ultimate statist. Like he will take the fucking check and, you know, build the fucking surveillance coin and do it under the guise of you know.
Isn't he already doing that for like the Egyptian government, who like is
yeah.
like one of the most tyrannical, like there's like a full-on fucking genocide going on in Ethiopia right now. It's like fucked up. Like fuck these people. And like, look, like I readily admit at this point, 95 to 97% are just outright motherfucking schemes.
Oh
like
man,
I just
it's
don't want to throw the baby out with the
99.9. Come on.
probably, and like I really don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I want to give the opportunity for the people to have their redemption, because like, you know, like I shitcoined long ago, and like you know, like I never shilled or anything, but like I, you know, I asked for forgiveness. Hopefully it's given. Yeah, and like I just like I have to remain open-hearted, even though I'm skeptical of them not doing, because like I just imagine the U.S. government partnering with Consensus to like then implement like their Bolshevik agenda, which would be like, yeah, it's like perfect, like a perfect name for like what they.
Well, dude, did the World Economic Forum is a sponsor for the next Consensus event?
You know,
Did
like,
you see
that? No, I'm like. We look like I want to be friends with you guys, but like you guys suck. Like these people fucking blow. Like the World Economic Forum is not, it's not a bunch of good guys getting together to help you. It's people that want to put you in fucking chains, man.
Well, that's the problem with these
right.
idiots. This is why I believe like fundamentally they're built off the wrong premise. So for me, this is why I think the meme, like, you know, Bitcoin is for the remnant, cryptos for the masses, is like, when you look at these crypto people, what they do is they dilute their message and they try and form it, and they try and build a product or a service or an idea or a message for the lowest common dumbass denominator on the planet. Whereas what we're trying to do with Bitcoin is fundamentally different, which is we're saying we don't care if it's, you know, not compatible or it doesn't play nice with governments. We're building something fucking new. It's different. It's new. It is the fucking automobile, not a faster carriage that, you know, sits more nicely on your fucking, you know, on your horse. Like it's a completely different thing. And for me, like, you know, the position that the crypto fucking retards take is that they're trying to appease and partner with government and institutions and, you know, bureaucrats and whatever it is, so that they can get mass adoption. And this is again where, like, for me, it defeats the fucking purpose of Bitcoin. Like we're playing a completely different game, and we don't care if it doesn't play nice with you. Fuck you. And like the essence that is so different.
Like these are, to me, like these are just the people pulling the horse into Troy. You know, like I think it's funny. Like so first of all, like you're gonna get these like backdoor blockchains, which like aren't blockchains, but like very expensive databases that like, you know, are centralized and don't actually work. But furthermore, like now you've actually educated about like what cryptography actually is and why it like actually is important, and you've like actually deployed it to the masses. So like now that they actually have like all of the practical tools that they can like finally put the triangle like in the triangle hole and be like, oh, it's Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, like, that's what we've been telling you guys. Good job. And like, I think this is all part of their process. And I think this is also like how, like this is essentially how we've weaponized it in a way that like the state's going to kill itself. And it's really exciting because like all this shit is like 8 moves in front of them. They're just dawning on them that like they can't actually crush Bitcoin if they want to. Like that's just occurring to them, sincerely.
Well, yes, but see, for me, the attack vector is that they you know, it's dawning on them that they can't crush Bitcoin, and when it really does dawn on them that they can't, this is why I think, strategically speaking, now I don't believe it's a strong enough long-term threat. But what I do believe is that it's going to, hey, the power came back on. Thank you, World Economic Forum.
Yay.
I appreciate it. I bow to thee. So what I think they will do is they will realize their impotence, basically, and they will turn around and say, look, fuck, we can't beat Bitcoin, but we will, we can't shut down Bitcoin, but we will deliver a better version of Bitcoin, like the Euro CBDC, from Leatherface Lagarde, over in Brussels. And they will use a poster boy like Vitalik or Hoskinson, both like fucking Academy Award winning actors, to present innovation to the lemmings, to the masses, and effectively give them slave coin. But they'll sell it as a digital central bank currency that goes to your wallet, and hey, we're innovative as well, and we're partnering with Consensus or the Cardano Foundation to give this to you. And I honestly think that's the channel, that's how they're going to do it, because that's their only way to get any form of, I guess, adoption in the marketplace. And the only people who are going to see through this are the people who are allergic to the bullshit, who are allergic to the lies, and who are allergic to the diluted message of mass adoption. And I guess this is where, for me, I just think that anybody putting brain power and effort into anything other than products and services that make Bitcoin better are effectively playing right into that fucking trap. They're literally handing that shit over on a silver platter to fucking Klaus and his friends to do with as they please.
Yeah, it's a bummer, to me. It's like talking to friends I went to high school with, and they're like, I'm going to join the army. It's like, look, there's like a whole list of reasons why this is a terrible fucking idea. But I just need you to think through and realize that working for these people is going to be fucking bad. And like, I can't stop people, and it's unfortunate. And I think that's why the best we can do is call them out on their bullshit and what they're trying to do and produce and build. And it's still going to happen. And I still think it's all going to backfire on them, because that function of inflation is like something they can't run away from. It's like they could issue their new shit coins that, like, there's all kinds of shit that they can do, including just like, when they have slave coin deployed, they can just like, we'll just like pull the money right back, like taxes, like surprise taxes. Yeah. It's going to be fucked up. Like, kind of hilarious too. Like you'll like jaywalk, and they'll be like, "We're taking the money out of your bank," bump bump, and you're like, "Oh,
well, that's when some of these idiots will wake up, right? So, and then the question is, they won't have any Bitcoin, and then they'll blame us for having all the Bitcoin, So just like they blame the Jews for having the gold.
Yeah, just right? Like skip just straight to step 3. They're gonna be like, they stole my money, those Bitcoiners. Like, if they weren't creating inflation with their stupid stable monetary issue, like, these people are gonna fucking hate us by the end. Like
they will. They will. But see, this is where, so when I think about, like, recently Udi and a bunch of other people have said the same thing, and I was disappointed with Rob, so I hope he's come around with his opinion on, like, how he was like, my evolution from becoming a Bitcoin maximalist, and for me, like, I fucking think that is like completely the wrong thing, because our job, like, as Bitcoiners is think about like a zombie apocalypse. We're in a zombie and we are in a zombie apocalypse. It's just a watered down version, right? Like, there's mindless morons walking around with
it's all institutional zombieism instead of people zombies. But
well, it's actually the people are fucking zombies as well. You've got people walking around with face diapers on outside in the fucking fresh air. They're mindless. So like, we are in a zombie apocalypse, except no one's eating brains. The brain decay mechanism is the mainstream media, right? So, like, it's just a different viral fucking coefficient. But like, so we're living in a zombie apocalypse at the moment, and our job is to send out a signal to the survivors, to the remnant, and they need to hear that signal. And this is why I believe, like, the so-called toxic maximalism, or the pure Bitcoiners, and the message that we out there kind of emanating or spreading most like 90% of people are going to walk right fucking past that shit. They're not going to hear it. They're not going to listen to it because they're tuned into the fucking zombie frequency. Whereas the remnant are naturally tuned into, you know, the remnant frequency, and they're seeking truth, and they're going to fucking hear that shit. And if we like diminish our message or dilute our message, we're going to basically tune into the zombie frequency ourselves and go and speak to the fucking masses. And we don't want to do that. And I guess this is where, as you said, the stupidity is going to happen. You know, they're going to build slave coin. You know, Vitalik's going to be their poster child. And, you know, they're going to go and build their shenanigans, and they're going to pull money out of people's accounts for jaywalking. And like, it's going to be one big clusterfuck. But our job is to make sure that we continue to send out the bat signal, you know, the Satoshi signal, so that the remnant who are actually looking up and not looking down in despair actually see it and come over to us. And that's what I think is the job or the role of the prophet of the remnant, which for me, it's just been so beautifully crystallized in Albert's work, and why I think that we can never waver. We can never fucking dilute, because our duty is to maintain that signal for the next person who's going to then amplify the signal.
I mean, luckily the economic incentives align, you know, let's just say like this is the initiation of like a super bear market that, like, you know, say it goes all the way to $10,000 over the next 3 years, and like somehow we know that won't ever fucking happen, but like I would be happy about that. That would be great, you know, like people like Hodl talks about this, like he fucking hates bull markets because like it gets so noisy and loud and number go up shit. And like, you know, like it's hard to kind of separate the any real frequency out of it, you know, because like all the zombies are like, you know, cacophoning together and, you know, screaming about their NFTs and shit. And like, well, I don't want to be so disparaging to call them zombie, because like one thing I want to give credit for is like people are just terrified. Like that's one of the things I've really realized is like everyone is fucking terrified of everything all the time. Like that is what the whole shebang of like this system is like make people utterly fucking scared of everything all the time for any reason. And like that's part of why we avoid death like so like as like a fundamental maxim like of our culture, is that like, because if we have to deal with the idea of dying, like it makes us uncomfortable, and like being uncomfortable is like the worst possible thing in modernity. So you know, and like yeah, and like more and more like I'm yeah, like I'm not interested in anybody in that society. Like when if I go to a function, I have to start talking to people and like normie shit's coming up, like I just go get really fucking high somewhere, you know, like I'm totally uninterested in any of that. You know, like if I'm at like a kid's birthday party and somebody's like, I'm a police officer, I'm like, oh, I gotta go poop for like the next 30 minutes because like I can't have any conversation here that doesn't get me probably shot by the end. You know, I'm like, yeah, like
that'd be a way to go on your
retarded, and like, you know, we'll probably be given our slave coin accounts that like we're demanded that we need to turn our cash in to do. And I can only hope that like as society gets more retarded, which like it's going quick, it's going way faster than I thought, that you know, more and more people are going to start thinking for themselves and choosing to opt out. And yeah, that bat signal is going to be out there. I think I can't help but be soft on the idea of crypto, just because all of my writing is under the idea of crypto sovereignty, which real quick, I just want to cover the only reason that I decided crypto sovereignty and not Bitcoin sovereignty is I believe that cryptography that powers Bitcoin is like the most fundamentally pure and powerful and important thing. And furthermore, I like the trap of the, like people trying to understand what crypto means, and they understand it means secret. And as they dig deeper into what the secret is, like Bitcoin actually is the secret buried at the bottom. And that's why you had to explore and go through your shitcoin arc, was to be able to discover Bitcoin is fundamentally what gives you crypto sovereignty. It's not the fact that it's just crypto by itself. It's this, you know, Promethean production of a glorious, problem is immaculate substance.
The morons co-opted the fucking word. That's the damn problem. Yeah. It's such a shame. Like it's just one of those good words that has been so fucking co-opted. And that's why I actually, you know, hands down, your work is one of those like it's like a red pill covered almost in a, you know, blue tinged pill. Like, you know, these idiots will like take it and they'll be like, oh fuck, I took the wrong one, right? And it's like,
that's
so
kind
just
of what
like,
I was going for.
yeah. Totally. Like it's just, so it penetrates the, you know, what the idiots might go down. So I mean, that's another strategy, I guess, because that's kind of like, that's more like the, you know, Tyler Durden splicing dicks inside the in the reel, right? It's like, you know, you're on their frequency a little bit more. Well, and it's not the complete lemming frequency. Obviously, it's not the zombie frequency, because people have to be interested in at least, you know, one level removed from CNBC. So they, you know, they need to think about crypto, and then they find that, and then they're like unpackaging and unraveling that, and they're like, oh fuck, it's Bitcoin. So that definitely,
well, to me, like the metaphysics that this word crypto is out there, and it literally means secret, but like people don't understand that that word means secret. Like it's fucking hilarious. Like what's going on with language here is really funny, because that's also one of the hopes I have with like crypto being the word, is that like people actually figure out that like cryptography wasn't just because like we wanted a fun math game. It's because like people were gonna fucking kill us if they understood what this message meant. And like it would be really great if people could actually come to understand that like there's a, well, and like this is what's going to happen as the panopticon comes to crush everybody, is that like turns out that like one of your NFTs are like, you know, rescinded because you know, the United States federal government now owns Ethereum. Like they're going to be like, dang, I wish it was actually decentralized in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Clowns. Okay, so is there anything you want to loop on this piece, or I wanted to sort of talk into obligations or duties, or, you know, what it is that we as Bitcoiners who are, you know, the meek that shall inherit the earth, should be thinking about long term. You know, do you want to tie anything off in this piece before we move on to the next chapter?
No, let's move on. Like I think so like, okay, you've taken the orange pill. You've woke up like on our fucking insane spaceship where we're like, yeah, everything's fucked. Like money is gonna be destroyed. Like everything's terrible. Like here's your gruel. And you're like, the fuck? I thought I was supposed to get rich. You're like, well, maybe, you know, like that's in fiat world. Here, that's not true at all. And you're like, fuck. You know, you can return though. You're just like, you return like Cypher returns, as like you have to clear your mind of like the knowledge that Bitcoin is, and you can like go back into fiat world and be a piece of shit. But
do you know what's funny? Just really quickly, my girlfriend's having that experience now, because like she had discovered Bitcoin just before meeting me, but she just kind of bought it as like a fucking fiat way to make some money, right? And you know, after meeting me, basically she's been drinking out of a fire hose. And you know, now she's on Twitter, and now she's like, you know, discovering how fucked up the world is, and she's kind of having that kind of the gruel experience. She's like, I thought Bitcoin was about like, you know, an investment. Now she's like realizing how fucking completely retarded the world is. And you know, she was having a bit of a crisis the last couple of days around like, she's like, I'm depressed. She's like, how can these people be doing what they're doing to the world? And I was like, now you know why, you know, we built fucking Bitcoin, because now it's like sort of, you know, or maybe this way, it's like now your eyes are open. But anyway, yeah, the gruel, people have been given the fucking gruel.
Yeah, so like, sorry, like you'll get rich in fiat terms, but I'm not sure how meaningful that will be. You know, so I think first is like admitting that like all this is actually going on. The political system can't save you. Voting is a totally pointless endeavor, and that like you need to watch out for yourself. I've really liked the idea of you know, balkanization. You know, you need to find your people, make your own little slice of heaven, and make that work for you. Like you know, people always bashing on me for being in California, but they don't realize like I'm in the far north of California, which is like pretty different in an area that self-identifies as being Jefferson. You know, like people here aren't friendly to California or to DC. And like that's great for me. And also, you know, like pretty much everybody out here is like a career marijuana grower. So like they're not interested in operating within the confines of the state, which works really great for me. There's probably other benefits for other people, but also like, you know, I spent, you know, a long time in the cities down in the Bay Area, and it would be interesting how much I'd talk about Bitcoin, but people weren't really interested or have been bought in. Whereas now I'm in a tiny community, and almost everybody I've met either has a strong interest or is already bought in. And it's really cool to see that the signal is permeated. So I think like the next steps are like understanding that Bitcoin just isn't about, you know, number go up and getting rich, but it's also about the responsibility of kind of cleansing yourself of fiat. Not to say that you don't have a bank account and you don't use money anymore, but like, you know, like I run on a cash reserve of a couple months, and I keep an eye on the price and kind of my thoughts and projections and whatever based upon whatever cash flow I need. Or even better is if I'm in a situation where I'm cash flow positive, like now, you know, I just get to buy the dip and manage my finances in that direction. You know, and furthermore, like figure out your food situation, because we're all like, that's a like, I think it's so interesting that like these are the conversations that are coming up when like we're supposed to be sitting here talking about Bitcoin, and we're talking about how our diet is part of a fiat culture that is destroying us and trying to control our minds, you know, like it's you know, like realize that like there's this whole system of control that's been designed and built to, you know, like delete Facebook immediately. Like, why the fuck are you using that or have anything to do with that? Like it doesn't bring any value to your life, I promise you. You know, and this is part of the journey of what we're starting to build together. And you'll, as you meet other Bitcoiners, you'll realize that they're on a different frequency too. They're part of that remnant, and that they want to build and work together and to create things. And it'll sort of happen naturally in a provincial way, you know, like if you're truly digging into this and going down the rabbit hole, like you're going to meet all of the people that you need to. And you know, this is kind of my woo-ness, like I very strongly believe like this is all to be delivered, you know, like it's not about can Bitcoin or will Bitcoin do these things. It's about when it all happens. And I think that like we're all kind of on a divine and destined path for what we're doing, you know, and that's sort of what kind of my more extreme work deals with, is that like we are fundamentally battling a kind of evil, you know, and that authoritarianism literally wants to dispose of and disregard of truth as a maxim in the world. And like that's not reality. Like it's just not true. And because it's been taken to such an extreme place, we're now fighting back with truth in this deeply authoritarian world, which pretty much makes it messianic, because the lies and the guile and the sneaky cunning, all this greasy, parasitic, disgusting behavior is all a product of, you know, that insincerity in the world, those lies and the way that they govern with.
So question on this. I'm yet to be satisfied, having spoken to a series of people around the idea of a they, right? So I did that podcast recently, Fuck Your Great Reset, with Mark Moss, with Laser Hodl, with all the guys, and you know, it's actually been by far my most popular fucking pod episode.
Yeah, it's on my podcast list.
Okay, you'll hear me in there talk about like I tried to get the guys to define what they mean by they. You know, do they mean like some cabal of fucking lizards behind a red curtain, you know, pulling the strings and, you know, puppeteering everything? You know, do they mean like, you know, the World Economic Forum and friends, like, you know, being able to actually orchestrate stuff? And for me, like I've always been hesitant to buy into this idea of a constructed conspiracy that is, you know, controlled and planned and executed very well, because I know how hard it is to just, you know, get some either consensus or like execute on a plan for like a small organization, let alone the complexity and that comes with scale, right? Like, and particularly when the executioners of said plan are fucking retarded, right? So you've got this sort of, I don't know, I don't really buy into it being a, a top-down plan for a world that's gone insane. But a lot of people point to, well, they're literally blatantly saying you'll own nothing and be happy. But my counter argument to that is, well, what else do you expect from a world in which human action is untethered to reality? Like, isn't this actually the outcome? So I guess where a couple questions here. Where do you sit on that spectrum of like, is this planned, or is this just fucking mindless chaos that has emerged in such a way that everywhere we look around us, it looks like it's a fucking plan? Where are we on that? Where do you sit on that spectrum? And after that, like, how do you define the they? If you believe that there is a they that are kind of pulls some strings here. So
I'm like, so far, like, I'm a big fan of Habermas' razor. Like, don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to stupidity, and like that goes all the way through, with Eichmann in Jerusalem. Like, Eichmann wasn't this like evil dude who was maniacal and like hated Jews. Like, no, like, he was just kind of a dimwit, and like, he was just following orders, and he sincerely believed that following orders was the right thing to do. And I think that that's the vast majority of the world. And I think most of these people, because they've been eating their own shit and the people that are like them for so long, like that authoritarian meal of eating the shit of their superiors and the other, quote unquote elites who are really part of this parasitic class, they sincerely think like they're right, like the economist who like went to Yale and got his PhD at Columbia and now sits on the board of the World Economic Forum. He sincerely thinks like he has the right ideas. Like, he doesn't realize that the kid out there that like had to go sell drugs in order to like make ends meet, like, probably knows a lot more about economics than they do. And so like, I sincerely think like these people that like make the World Economic Forum ads, like they're like so disconnected from what's going on that they believe that. And like, this is part of fucking clown world fiat, is that like, there's almost nowhere that like incentives are actually aligned.
Yeah.
Like, it's really fucking amazing. And to me, like, I actually think like this is part of the generalized failure that has occurred in language. That's like part of the production of modernity. And like, the really, since the introduction of like what advertising is and this sort of guileful communication, well, we're like a fucking century on the back end of that. We're like words are so estranged from their own meaning that like we almost can't even fucking communicate anymore. And to me, like, that's part of the reason why like the World Economic Forum can like say this shit that like we find fucking horrifying, and that like they don't even get why you would think that's horrifying. They're like, no, like, isn't it great? There's this like social credit system and you just like beep in and it like tracks all your stuff for you, and like you're really happy because like everything's taken care of you. Like, isn't that super great? And like you're like, well, what about like all the privacy ramifications? They're like, I didn't really think much about that. But it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. We have GDPR. It's fine.
Yeah, like I remember really early at Coinbase, we used to have these people come in from different startups and present. And there was this guy, he had an AI startup that he had raised money from Elon Musk. And it was funny because, like everyone on my team was kind of more paranoid. And like one of the people was like, hey, like, don't you like have sincere worries about like how this stuff can kind of get out of control and like, really like make a big mess and like fuck things up? And I shit you not, the guy was like, no, actually, I've like never really thought about that, actually. And like, that's what I think is going on. Like, most of these people, like they've never sat back and reflected for a minute to be like, oh, like, look, could it be wrong to like have people not own anything or have any privacy? Like, is there a problem with that? And like, I'm totally on this end of Habermas, where it's like, I think these people are so fucking stupid and that they've never even reflected for a moment on what they've done. And like, I sincerely think that like, if you could just like fucking bootload all of this shit into them, they would like have this extreme existential moment where they would flip the fuck out and probably kill themselves because they realize what terrible, terrible people they are and what horrific stuff they've done. Like I sincerely think that there's a number of people, and like that's part of why we can't think about death. We can't think about the sort of legacy that's left behind for us, like what we've actually done in this world that like has meaning or substance. And I think, I think Christine Lagarde sincerely thinks that she's like this brilliant, amazing woman who's like making a great difference in the world and changing things. And like when people are like, but like you're an actual convicted financial criminal. Why the fuck are you running a global monetary project? And like, like her bullshit excuses, she sincerely believes are like good reasons for why that's true. But at no point has she ever reflected on the idea that like she's a bad person and that like what she's doing is evil,
Mm-hmm.
And what's the most amazing part of all of this is like all of this stupidity somehow synchronizes with itself. Like it's all just dumb enough that like it's just retards taking advantage of other retards in the most retarded situations that they can, and it's just like autism beating itself over and over, and we have to watch it and participate.
Okay, I love that description towards the end. So I guess for me, the word conspire means to act in a particular direction, right? Like you want to create some sort of outcome. And I don't discount the fact that I'm sure a subset of these psychotic maniacs do actually intend on controlling or have like visions of controlling the earth. But my guess is that their attempts at doing so are not the reason why the world looks like it's controlled, right? So I think that there's maniacal idiots out there who think that they're making moves towards running things, and everyone's conspiring. But my intuition here is that in many ways the emergent madness of crowds, untethered to a reality in which the consequences of decisions actually exist. So like, when on a fiat standard, when I perform action A, B, C, D, E, and A, B, C, and D are bad actions, but E was a good action. But because I don't get feedback quickly enough, because the fiat system is so fucked up, I actually think E was the bad action and A, B, C, D were the good actions. So then I continue to make bad fucking actions, and the whole thing is a complete mess, right? And in that world, you kind of magnify that out, then you actually get what we're seeing today, where the fucking dumb bitch at the corner shop actually fucking believes that if you don't wear a mask while you're checking out, you're going to kill everyone in the store. Like that, they actually fucking believe this. Like happened to my girlfriend yesterday. She walked in, she didn't have a mask, so she put a bandana around her face. She walked around the shop, she bought everything, and then when she got to the checkout, they were like, "Oh, we can't let you check out unless you wear one of these masks." And she's like, "I've literally been in the store for 10 minutes. I've literally filled the basket with stuff. I'm about to check out." And they're like, "No, you can't check out unless you wear a mask." And she fucking snapped it and she walked out. Like, and when I see the shit like that, I'm like, holy fuck hell. Like, conspiracies are one thing, but like the lemmings genuinely have transformed, have transformed the world in a worse way than I think the small percentage of psychotic maniacs that want to conspire could have ever hoped to have done, basically.
Oh yeah, I mean like this is like petite tyranny like played to its greatest extent. Like these are people that they've never had any form of power in their entire life, and so like when they can finally flex that in a meaningful way, like and like we're like pretty far past like any of this like dealing with our health. Like I don't know, like if we're still talking about that, I want to be like, look, like I get it. You could like die of this thing. Like that's unfortunate. Like, did you realize that like there's all this other insane fucked up stuff that like is going on that's probably more meaningful than either of us dying, you know, like the shit coming out of Australia is fucking terrifying, you know, like it and like this is just the beginning of all of this playing out. And like, you know, it like I don't know, 2 weeks to stop the curve to like infinity lockdown and like losing all rights, like guys, like it's been longer than 2 weeks, and also we've like lost huge amounts of rights. They started printing out shitloads of money, and like to me, like this is one of those dumb things. Like I'm at the place that like I do think it was an experimental virus from Wuhan. Like I think I think this is just like the outbreak. Like this is literally how the movie Outbreak is. Like the janitor like tries to sell the monkey for like some extra money, and like there's a global pandemic that happens from it. Like that. This is what happened, and it's a great example of like this Haven's Risk. Like it's just fucking dumb, you know. And like you would think that this pandemic that like destroyed most of humanity because of the way people flipped out and locked down about it, like it would be like some maniacal plot, but no, it was just like some dude trying to make 20 yuan selling a monkey.
Well, see, this is the thing.
Welcome to dumbass world.
If it was a conspiracy, so this is my argument. So if it was a conspiracy that was attempted to be planned and all this sort of shit, they would have like released a fucking, you know, a functional virus that actually wiped out a bunch of people. Like, so you know, all the people that say, oh, it's, you know, it's the eugenicists and it's the depopulators that are releasing a virus, and that, you know, so it actually would have been executed a lot cleaner than what's become this clusterfuck of face diaper wearing zombies going to swim out in the ocean whilst wearing a fucking mask. Like they're literally waterboarding themselves, right? So it's like, it's kind of like evolved or mutated is probably the better word. Like it's mutated into this fucking retard land that no conspiracy, no conspiring backdoor fucking behind the curtain lizard cabal could have ever hoped to have created. I bet even those guys are sitting back wondering, fuck, I didn't realize these idiots would, you know, take it in this way. Like I'm pretty sure if there is, you know, Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates were behind everything, I think even they're sitting here scratching their heads wondering like how fucking retarded everything's become. It's kind of my point. Like I
like Bill Gates clearly isn't like a dumb man, you know, like he like clearly understood there was, you know, like going to be a global pandemic, that he could make shitloads of money making a vaccine. And like he's an excellent businessman. It's the same reason that like he cornered the market on farms and everything. And like he's not dumb at all. Like I don't think there's this like great maniacal plan of like, haha, I'll take over like all the farmlands and the vaccines and stuff. I think like Bill Gates is like, I'm like this great guy. I'm like trying to save humanity and like preserving all the farmlands and like, look at me, how great I am. And at no point is there like hey, dude, do you think that like people could maybe like see you as being this really rich guy trying to like forcibly inject their bodies with shit, like might not come off like as the best? Again, fucking retarded. Like, no, never thought about it for a minute, you know. And like it's like the Wizard of Oz, you know, like you get there, there's this huge maniacal enemy, you're like, oh, you like rip down the curtain and it's like, oh no, it's just a little fucking nerd who's terrified. He's like, oh, get away. And you're like, this is the thing destroying the world? Fuck.
Yeah. It is. Okay. Interesting. I don't know, man. I feel like there may well be, in my mind, like there may well be a well planned out agenda that is designed to, you know, step by step strip people of their rights and everything like that. But I err on the side of, like you said, not attributing to malice what one can attribute to stupidity. And I feel like this is just an emergent manifestation of an untethering to reality. And you know, when people ask me, what do you think is the biggest impact that Bitcoin is going to have on the world? Like I actually think by and large, Bitcoin's biggest impact is it's going to shorten the feedback loop between decision, action, and consequence. Like if I had to sum it all up, that's literally what it is. Because like what is the world made up of? It's or what is society made up of? It's made up of human beings making decisions and acting in a particular direction and getting feedback on their actions as to whether or not it was a good action or a bad action, such that they can continue moving forward. And what we have now is really poor set of feedback loops in which nobody actually knows what's good, what's bad. So like the information is all fucked up. And by shortening that feedback loop and by tethering it actually to reality and to consequence, what happens is bad behavior is fundamentally disincentivized. Good behavior is fucking compounded, and we actually save the fucking world. Just that bit saves everything, and that pierces the heart of, you know, the lie that has emerged, you know, probably by accident. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Like it is an accident, but it's not, you know, like that, that like same reason why, like, why the fuck was Bitcoin produced like right now? Like seriously, if it would have been like 5 years later, nope. You know, like 5 years earlier, like almost barely didn't have the technology to do it, you know. And like, again, like I sincerely think that this is like a metaphysical thing that's going on, and that like this is part of like essentially what Heidegger would call like the turning, you know. And like this is the moment in human history where like there's this fundamental recognition about knowledge and a construct that we can have that, you know, has manifested itself as Bitcoin. And it's like the most important thing in all of human history, like more so than the invention of reading or any of this shit. Because right now, humanity is in an anthropogenic moment where like we could fucking destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons from the state or any number of other ways. And the only way we can pull humanity back from that shit is part of the organizational structures that we're producing right now. And so like when we get, you know, 500 years out, what's going on right now, and I think what Satoshi produced, I think will readily be recognized as the second coming because of how powerful and important it is that it's doing all this shit non-violently, and that it happens to align all these people in these very peaceful ways. You know, it's all just a little too fucking convenient and coincidental and serendipitous. So much so that I don't think any of it is. You know, and same reason why we're here and we're doing what we're doing.
Okay, so if it's, I want to pull on that thread. So if it's not coincidental, what is it then? So do you think it is some sort of divine now I think I think it's providence or some weed. Okay.
You know, like I sincerely think that like I think Satoshi, whoever he was, however he produced Bitcoin, was part of his own transcendental vision and experience where like God fucking visited him and told him how to do this thing, and that's how he put it together, and that's why he knew all of the perfect artistry to like keep his perfect forward secrecy concealed, and having all the components of cryptography and knowing to target, you know, the cypherpunk community and all of this. And I think it's like one of those things that's like so far past him that like and I think that's one of the reasons they, you know, like I think he like ran away from the project. I think whoever like is Satoshi Nakamoto like probably like closed that book in 2014 and was like, nope, like not going to deal with being this person, having anything to do with this. You know, I don't exist. Yeah, and so like I think it is all provincial because like it. Like, is it also serendipitous that like we're fighting these insane evil forces that are like lying to people about everything and are like using their money to create infinite wars where they fucking kill brown people for no reason, like render the idea of justice itself like as a fundamental incapacity in the world? Like all this shit just lines up, you know? And like for me, like that's one of the reasons when like I came to all the conclusions I did, like I was angry. It like fucks me up. Like I didn't want any of this, you know? And like, you know, I was like, I just want a number to go up because like it's the best thing that could ever exist. And then it's like, oh shit, well, I guess like that then follows through with all of this other stuff, right? Like isn't it only possible to like wage the jihad and the holy war towards, you know, against fiatism for what it is, like the lies and the evil it entails. You know, and I think like this all just gets a lot fucking louder as we go farther along. And like what happens when like our children's children are like, you're part of a lineage of the remnant of the original Bitcoiners, and like you have an obligation to both your ancestors and to the future to like make sure that this technology progresses forward. Like that's some pretty heavy shit. And I think it's fucking awesome, because also like, what better to rescue us from like the gray, nihilistic, pointless fucking existence that we all had before? It's great. And it's wild and weird.
So, oh fuck.
Okay.
the providence piece. Do you think there's any substance in the idea that, you know, energy money, which is how I kind of think of Bitcoin, was, you know, discovered elsewhere potentially, and, you know, or perhaps in the future or another dimension or whatever the case is, and I don't know, dropped off as something at a particular point in time.
Yeah, like I actually like thinking about like there's some total amount of energy that like Bitcoin utilizes that like goes up and up and up, essentially forever. And at some point, like the weight of that amount of energy starts to get closer and closer to like that of a black hole or something. You know, in theory, who actually knows how much energy it could consume? But I like thinking that there's like such a great amount of energy density that's happening that essentially like there was a time vortex that was opened, and like Satoshi from like an alternative future where like everything's dystopian grayness somehow discovered that like he could send this information back in time and like pose himself like as a person in the world, but like no, just like somebody from the future, because we haven't disproved that information can't go back in time. So you know, and like I've been working more on like just some like fiction stuff, mostly for myself, as like a way to kind of like cleanse out all of my anger and shit. And like part of what I'm working on is like a whole Bitcoin Citadel remnant thing. And like, you know, like this is essentially what the belief is of like who Satoshi was. And like people like highly debate about like if he was sent from the past or the future, because like there will be like one part of the remnant that will sincerely believe that it was the second coming of Christ, but there'll be another part they almost regards it as Judaism of like, no, like he was like a great prophet and shit, but like he's not like the final Messiah. Like the final Messiah will come later on. But I don't know. I think it's healthy to think about, because it's all not only an important part of like the future aesthetics that we're creating, but we're not like relegated to like the hateful, gray, dystopian world that's been offered to us, you know, and like that's really exciting. You know, like it's as fucked up as everything is, I'm way more excited about this future possibility, because like it's not just like luxury and success. It's like a real life with people.
Meaningful.
Yeah. Like,
deeply meaningful.
You know, agape is the word that I come to, you know, like this sort of love that's like, you know, past just like the romantic love, but like this greater like fellowship and sort of and this bleeds through in my writings too, you know, like the finding the other, you know, like I could say I found that in you and Gigi and, you know, all these other people that are part of the remnant, is that like there are these other people that aspire me to be greater and to be better and to contribute, because you know, like I want to be part of that community, and I want to be able to see how it influences me and gives me the feedback that helps me to grow larger and do the things that I didn't necessarily believe I had the power to do on my own.
That's beautiful. All right. So on that note, what are you working on at the moment? Is there anything you want to sort of disclose other than working on your green thumb and your off October?
Well, right now I'm working on rolling a joint. But what I'm working on.
Oh shit.
So like I have one piece that's called the pedagogy of Bitcoin. I've been digging at it. Like I had this problem of I went way off in left field and like I keep coming back to it. Because like originally it was like a pretty short and sweet piece that was pretty much like, you know, understand cryptography and all kind of the wider pieces that like let you get Bitcoin and how it makes your oppression not possible. But then I like went off in this direction to talk about your soul and recognizing the other person's soul. And like this is all part of this dynamic of like dignifying the other. So maybe that'll get published. And the other big one that I've been working on is one of Heidegger's last essays that he published was called The Question Concerning Technology. And it was essentially like his own approach philosophically about like what actually is technology at its like most core level, which to him, it was like this process of unveiling the truth, but specifically like this method of unveiling and like using language and physics to like lead towards a particular way with it. But I've been trying to like read this in light of Bitcoin because like I'm really keyed up to this idea about like Bitcoin is a language and it's speaking a particular semantics of truth in a way that's so powerful that like it can't violate its oath that it's taken in order to make this semantics of truth operable. So like the only thing that can actually go into the Bitcoin blockchain like is this statement of fundamental truth. So much so to an extent that like in its semantics, we can find the TXT ID like is its specific like word that like is the expression for that very particular event. And this then all like also marries up with like the form of language that God was supposed to have. Cause like when he talked about stuff in Eden and it like became, he didn't actually say like, this is a tree. It was just like the tree that like was there, like just boom, there it was, you know, he didn't need words to express anything. So there's this sort of finality about language that has a totality to it that allows for an immediate truth telling of telling if something's truth or false. And Bitcoin is continually telling this truth that I think, particularly as we go into the future, it becomes more and more profound. You know, like what does it mean when you live, you know, in the year 2500 and there's just, you know, fucking every 10 minutes, you still got transactions coming up, you know, it's all still working as was intended. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking out that piece, man, when it comes out.
Thanks. I've been struggling to actually like publish stuff because I feel like now people are being more attentive to me, whereas before I was just like, woo, like I'm just the crazy guy. And then people are like, no, like go on. I'm like, oh shit, people are paying attention now.
Dude, they fucking need to be, man. Like, you know, I still remember the first time I read one of your pieces. It was like 2019, and I came across it and I was like, how the fuck does nobody know this guy? Like, I still remember that. You know, I was reading through it. I was like, holy fucking shit, this stuff is like incredible. And yeah, I remember looking at your Twitter and you had like, I don't know, 1,000 followers or something. I'm like, Jesus fuck, this can't be right. So yeah,
I appreciate that, you know, and like getting that kind of feedback is what helps me continue on my journey. Yeah, you know, and it's funny because like I had a whole nother pseudonymous profile that like I built on and worked on like while I was at Coinbase, and I didn't want it to be public for the meanwhile, but it helped me really evolve and develop a lot of my thoughts so that when I finally started publishing under my own name, it allowed for a much
more polished kind of
I wouldn't even say more polished. Like I was able to go deeper to where I wanted to go, you know, like so much of the original stuff was me just kind of trying to get my own sense of myself.
Figure it out.
Yeah, like really kind of figuring out the economics part and why that was important, then also like filling in all kind of the historic edge for me. And that's what really kind of made space for me to start thinking about it in a deeper philosophical way, because like you know, I'm like really the main question that kind of kept me going for a long time was like, how the hell does this thing keep its oath in a way that like no man can do? You know, like if I don't share the private key, there's like no way to get the Bitcoin. Like, how is that even possible? And to me, as I dug deeper and deeper into it, you know, I really realized that like it's this oath that Bitcoin's able to take, you know, that like fundamentally is the functions of its cryptography. And, you know, for me, that was kind of one of my more profound moments when I realized like, oh, because of the actual linguistic substance that Bitcoin has, it can create this new kind of oath that like we've never seen before. So I guess that, to answer, like I'm trying to work on some of those really big metaphysical questions that it's just hard because so much of it's inspirational, and the other is like I said, my own self-consciousness. But I think I just need to kind of kick myself in the ass and get over it, because for every essay I've published, I have 10 that are unpublished. So
yeah, I'm the same, man. I've got 118 in sitting in drafts, and it's like it really goes. I've got to actually, if I can sit down and do the damn things, but it's, between everything else, where's the time? And then I get caught up in the same thing. It's one last quick question.
When you're like running a company and shit, you have like some good excuses. I'm just dadding.
Yeah, touche. You're too busy growing weed and I'm smoking the shit.
There's some of that.
You mentioned Heidegger. So I haven't read any of his stuff. Can you sort of give us a kind of an overview? What's Heidegger known for? What should people seek out maybe as an entry point?
Oh, as an entry point, Jesus Christ. So Heidegger,
maybe not even an entry point, just fucking whatever.
Yeah. So to be clear, like the way that I kind of encountered Heidegger was vis-a-vis one of his students, Giorgio Agamben. Like I'm a big fan of his work, Homo Secur, which kind of deals with the idea of the state of exception and how the state can kill people without them being, without it being called murder. So I kind of came back to Heidegger because he deals a lot more with like core fundamental questions about like, like what is being, like what does it mean to be man, and these, like this question of like, what is the question concerning technology? And so the question concerning technology is really hard, and reading Heidegger is pretty hard just because he like makes up his own German words because of like the way that they connotate and the importance that they have, and also because of kind of the actual etymological history involved with the words. So like sometimes he'll use these strange words, and then there's like, a 10-page essay you need to read about why he used that word. So it can be pretty annoying in that way, but I really like it because I'm strange. And so this essay, The Question Concerning Technology, I found it to be really informative, despite how difficult of a read it is, because it helped me start to think about like, what is this actual essential nature that creates technology and its functions, and how does that relate to Bitcoin? And to me, how this relates to Bitcoin is that essentially Bitcoin is kind of the final point of us coming to an understanding of technology that allows for us to actually enter into a free relationship with technology. Because thus far, like we've all been captured by technology in this way that like can continue to capture us in a very dangerous way that like leads to the infinite panopticon, where like it's just a boot stomping on a human face forever. But there's also this opportunity in creating a relationship with technology that's actually free. But for it to be free, it must be predicated upon cryptography, and it also must be predicated upon a form of money that utilizes cryptography appropriately and securely, using a system that has a secure supply, which, lo and behold, is Bitcoin. So for me, connecting Heidegger's work, this final piece of his work, to Bitcoin felt really important because I feel like Bitcoin is this metaphysical language of truth that has paramount metaphysical importance because it allows for a turning of human history from one that essentially is authoritarian to one that can actually be this sort of neo-enlightenment that's led by truth.
Okay. So then if you were to pick out maybe like one or two works, like where would you potentially point people?
For Heidegger specifically?
Yeah.
He has a couple shorter essays. So I would say if you feel ready to kind of take on all of his strange language and stuff, The Question Concerning Technology, I think is a really great essay. If you want to get familiar with like his larger and broader works, he's very well known for Time and Being, which is like a huge undertaking as an essay. I particularly like his shorter essays, and there's a number that are published also, The Question Concerning Technology, such as There's one that's called The Turning, which specifically deals with this idea that he speaks about in The Question Concerning Technology. And it kind of elaborates on this idea of how technology sort of causes our culture to change and evolve, and how this is this dangerous thing that people can get captured in, but it could be a good thing. And then also with it, there's another essay specifically dealing with Nietzsche, and like how Nietzsche's idea of the death of God wasn't so much just about like there's no longer a larger, you know, like metaphysical God to be had, but like it opened access to all these ideas of that, you know, like there's now this open universe that we can tell everything with mathematics, and there's no longer anything like non-sensual of this world that like has depth and meaning, and like that has importance for how we've kind of gone through the world. With that being said, I don't have any real expectations on anyone to try to read somebody like Heidegger or Ambegen. Like in all honesty, like I just pursued this stuff because like I was really curious, and like I needed to know on a philosophical level, like why the fuck is this thing working in this way that seems to have importance beyond just normal economic means. You know, and I'm really grateful because if I like looked at my bookshelf from 10 years ago today, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, what did you like go back to graduate school for philosophy or something? You know, because like I had no interest in any of this stuff. Like my entire intellectual curiosity has pretty much been born out of my curiosity for Bitcoin and the journey that that's taken me on.
Dude, that like as a final point here is like such a profound piece, I think, more broadly with Bitcoin. Like I said this, I can't remember who I said this to. I think I was in Austin with some Bitcoiner we were driving around. Could have been Phil Gibson. And I said, look, one of the things that Bitcoin has done is like it's turned us all back into like students, but like deeply curious students, unlike what we could have ever been back at school. Like the shit we're fucking reading and we're researching and we're writing essays and we're doing all this, like who fucking does that? Like if there was ever going to be a, you know, a representation of like a second Renaissance, like if this is not it, I don't know what the fuck is. Like honestly, like
yeah, it's very exciting because the way that it, you know, and like that piece of how it inspires and changes us, like that's part of it too, you know. And like I am so excited for the way that it's changed me and made me into this bigger person that like I couldn't have recognized comparatively before. And it's so important in the way that you know, and there's a great essay that's wrote by Immanuel Kant that's called "What is the Enlightenment," which is, it's very profound because it's deeply related to everything today. But in it, he has the Latin phrase of "sapere du," which is "dare to know," and it's the entire essay is about having the courage to think for yourself and allowing for that to make be the main thing that you make your way in the world. Like that's what Bitcoin is, and that's what it's really all about at the end of the day, is because like look, like this isn't a Ponzi scheme where we're trying to take advantage of you. We're telling you everything else is. There's a reason that 21 million is important, and it's because like this is the fixed supply that can never be violated, unlike everything else. And everyone will tell you that it won't change, but it will. And what does that mean? That you have to live in this world where people will sincerely promise you things that they cannot fulfill their obligation to because they're just not strong enough, you know? And like Bitcoin happens to be different because it doesn't rely on the will of men, but of something entirely different.
Yeah, the way I kind of try and frame that actually, and fuck, here we're going to another rabbit hole, but like I kind of say like what like Bitcoin is the first time we've actually been able to place some form of creation into the realm of like physical law. So like you and I, no matter how hard we try, we can't change the speed of light. Like, you know, we can kick, bitch and scream. And when we jump off a cliff, you know, gravity has its effect, and it, you know, it turns us into watermelons when we land on the fucking base of the, you know, the canyon. So like we can't change the second law of thermodynamics. We can't change physical laws. And Bitcoin is this like fucking creation that sits in the realm of physical laws that none of us can fuck with. And as a result, removes the need for an institution to uphold a promise. And it removes the need for all of the fucking shit that goes around an institution such that you can keep the institution honest. It's fuck, man, I don't know. Like this to me, it's like,
well,
I've got
to,
tweet. Sorry,
to
go,
me,
go, go.
this is why I see it as like the most avant-garde form of art that there is, because like it's extraordinarily beautiful of what he actually created. It's so beautiful that it's the most valuable thing that has ever been produced in all of human fucking existence, and
Yes.
it's doing this through this this statement that he created that was such a profound statement that he could not use words, but he had to create a totally new system that kept track of time in order to allow for this piece of avant-garde to perform itself through its continuous truth-telling that like fundamentally is a critique of all of humanity, which like is fiat money. Like, like it's all so metaphysical and profound, you know, like
it really is.
Yeah, like I totally think it's divine.
It's the portal into the next stage. So like, you know, this is another unpopular opinion that I have actually, is, you know, everyone talks about, oh, you know, the fourth turning and this cycle and that cycle, and, you know, Bitcoin's a functional. And I'm like, no, fucking Bitcoin's a portal to a realm in which all these other previous cycles, you know, in which we're trying to understand humanity, economics, existence, and everything, they all become fucking obsolete. Like Bitcoin, and I've got a tweet that is like pinned on my profile now, is, you know, Bitcoin doesn't just break all your models. Bitcoin breaks all the cycles. There is no more fucking cycle that, you know, we understand in this existence right now. There is no other cycle like that exists post hyper Bitcoinization. Like we move into a completely new fucking realm. It is the door's been opened and we're walking through the shit. And once we close the door behind us, these other fucking petty cycles that morons like who wrote the fourth turning, that shit doesn't matter anymore. Like it's all fucking meaningless. And like the way I see it, like, and Francis said this while we were driving in a fucking car, it's like fire, then Bitcoin, then teleportation. Like that's the three most important discoveries in the history of like a sentient species. You know, fire turned us from fucking dopey ass like apes into Homo sapiens that, you know, were able to, you know, have a prefrontal cortex form. So so there was before fire and there was after fire. And after fire is like when history basically begins and, you know, our current state emerges. And then there is the point, you know, after Bitcoin, which is we transform from Homo sapien into Homo Bitcoinicus. Like we're a new species, and that is, it'll be in existence defined completely differently to what has happened for the last, I don't know, couple 100,000 years since we figured out fucking fire. And that's how fucking big I think this is. And people are still fucking around wondering about the difference between the price of 50,000 and 42,000. I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
And like that goes to show like kind of the difference of what we see in it. And that's also why I think it's messianic, you know, like this thing is literally lifting the Cation for us to like understand that like the state fundamentally is fucking evil, and like it's bringing about this apexal relationship where at the other side of it, like once the Bitcoin standard has introduced to the world that most people in the world are Bitcoiners, like I have to imagine the world's like a pretty peaceful place with like stuff going on that's pretty great. And yeah, there's no more cycles. And again, like it revisits, like I actually think it's messianic because of the way that it fundamentally changes all of human history in this way that's so powerful and profound that that's the only thing we can recognize it as, you know. And it just so happens to do it through telling truth in this way that's so powerful that it changes everything. Yeah, it's so privileged to get to, you know, talk with you about these ideas, because for so long this shit, you know, bounced around in my own head and I was just like, am I fucking, have I lost it? Like, am I totally insane? Which, not to discount that I probably am to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say like there's, you know, that subset of us is absolutely fucking insane, but you know, sane is a low bar these days. So like I'm proud to be fucking part of the insane.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Well, look, really, really quickly, where can people find you, your work, so that they can harass you?
You can find me at cryptosovereignty.org. I tried to help recuse myself a bit about that word crypto, but maybe this is a hill I need to retreat from. I don't know. I'll consider that for a bit. Also, you'll find me more frequently on Twitter. It's just under my name, Erik Cason, ErikCason. I'm not on anything else. So if people are trying to hit you up where I'm selling you Erik Cason coin, you should buy it. It's really great. I'm sure whatever scammer is creating it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, buy it. I'm sure it'll go up.
That's the new thing. That's exactly what we need to do. Just tell everyone to buy the shit coins. All right, my man.
All right. Well, I love you much.
No. What were you gonna say? What were you gonna say before then?
Oh, I can't even remember. I'm just flying with it.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't wait to see you in the flesh again. And it's always rejuvenating to get to talk and know we're on the same wavelength. And your most recent piece was great, and it really helped capture a lot of my own thoughts towards what we're building together. So
absolutely, my friend. Thank you for coming on as usual.